Oh, check, check, check. Okay. Hello, everyone. Charles Richard Zerilli, yeah? And it's Labor Day weekend at this point, and I hope that everyone's having a happy Labor Day. And for those who don't have a job and who have a lot of weight on their minds because they might not, my heart is with you. Um, I have intentions, of course, to remedy these circumstances, considering I'm going to get into office. So let me just introduce myself. My name is Charles Richard Zerilli, and I've started a new party. Some people would call it a third party. I call it the main party. Um, it's called the Declaration of Independence Party. And I did this specifically because I am a design professional oriented person. I've been doing many designs my whole entire life through my career. I've had architects sign my plans and submit them, of course, within collaboration of the architect overseeing what I've done. However, um, a lot of the plans have to be approved and within my own right with my design and my fashion and my implementation and considerations and layout, they were. And the architect basically at that point, you know, actually I was training one of my friends who was an architect because he had never done what I did. And then when he saw I was able to do it, he started doing it. So, which is kind of cool. I love when I can share things with people, especially when they work with me and then it becomes a benefit back for them. So, what's my topic for today? I just want to apologize because I'm on a system that doesn't have video presently, although I was trying to use it. So, the show must go on, but I'm sure everyone and out there who's already in the room can see that I just simply have a background and it's a black and a white guy shaking hands, and it reads New Respect and Balance. Please be open here. Real design is key. And then, of course, the website, and I'll give it to you now. What the website is time to join.us. TIMETOJOIN.us. That's all one word, time to join.us. So, Yeah, within respect of everything, and even though the Labor Day weekend, I didn't want to put off the Zoom for this evening. And we're a little bit light on participants. Of course, people are out having barbecues, and some people probably are basking in their own thought of maybe not having a job and aren't interested. Maybe they're on something else. Maybe they decide to watch a movie or TV, and that's okay. But my topic is, and the focus is, reframing our Constitution to match and to math the Declaration of Independence. Um, this is one thing I think that we really don't hear anyone saying. We don't hear any politicians really speaking of the Declaration of Independence in any way, shape, or form. And I think voting for any one of the people who are the Democrats or the Republicans, I'm not going to mention their names. We already know the two primary people who are running. I think it's a waste of your time. Um, they could say the same about me, but they don't do design. They don't have 14 licenses variously, including 5 EPA certifications. They don't include all different things to work symbiotically. And how many times both people have lied, especially the person who's not in the office right now, but he's just running. And from what I understand and from what I've seen, he has been relative to promising that Black lives would really matter. And he's only come up shy and hollow over and over and over and over again. And so that's not my MO. By the way, my name is Charles Richard Zarelli, and I am the Declaration of Independence Party, the party that's been created to join all parties. That's why the Declaration of Independence is relative to the Declaration of Independence Party. I wanted it to be directly in the name of it because it's a guide. And what does a guide represent? From birth to death, whether you are a person, business, or government. And most people have no understanding of that. No one has ever shared that with us. But I wrote a book about this. And these are the things that when you start to see, if I may use the word kinesthetics as a slang, because kinesthesia is the movement of your arm, but kinesthetics is just the way of the movement, the actual value of the words. That's why I'm using it in a slang. And I heard someone else who's very professional use that word, and I can't find it, kinesthetics. No matter where I look, in older dictionaries, new dictionaries, I see kinesthesia. Anyway, I don't want to get off my topic. So, design is extremely very important, and the value, the kinesthetics of those terms and all the words equivalent a fair balance. That's why Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King, had mentioned it. And of course, what did he say? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Um, we hold these truths to be self evident. And with certain unalienable rights by our Creator. And among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I have most of these quotes in the Declaration already memorized because when I wrote a book about it, it was just so interesting. I couldn't believe it because it is a document that also references suffering. Most people wouldn't think when you say life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that you're including suffering. Well, who do you know who hasn't suffered in their life at one point or another, or who doesn't feel suffered every day, especially now? Many, many, all people do, not many. All people have an occurrence of suffering, if not several or many or constantly. I know several people who don't ever have a moment where they're not suffering. And it bothers me because when I look at who we are as the world's strongest nation on the globe, I feel that we're dealing with people who are used to lying, although they'll say it's a promise. And that's where I don't connect with them. I don't agree with them. I don't appreciate that people use words and don't mean it because I'm not used to that. And at least if I say something, you can put your life on it. And if I can't accomplish it, then you can ask me the question why. And I won't avoid your question. I will directly answer because when I say something, I mean it. And I call it in my mental mailbox, which means thoughts are being attributed to it, the abilities of how it's going to work. Um, how those things are going to fit, and how many different things are relative to the availability to physically, reasonably make it work, whatever it is. And only when I was 14, I broke a promise to a female at that point, and I felt hollowed. I didn't like it. I've never cheated on going steady with a woman. I have never cheated on a woman in my life. And I can't say the people around me who have, but it's a good percentage. I don't want to say who hasn't and who has because then I'm going to be in trouble. I, I don't. I'm not looking to cause the drama, which of course we need to avoid. So on the radio show, someone asked me a question yesterday, and I thought it was very interesting because although a lot of us need assistance, a lot of us need aid, a lot of us feel that our country's not taking care of us, and how are we being guided? Because that's what the Declaration of Independence is. It's a guide. And for those who just tuned in now, we just want to say that the Declaration of Independence is a guide, whether you are a person, whether you are a business, or whether you are a government. And it's from birth to death, which means as long as a government is alive and surviving, there is a series. I don't want to say forgive me for this because it is what it is, and it's a positive thing. It's a series of grand orders. Now I know there are some grand orders relative to what we can see in our government today, and suffering is part of it. Most people wouldn't be able to put that element together in a design, but there's no doubt in my mind there's an element of that we either do or don't consider suffering, but it happens so much. And there's a series of grand orders that instill that. I feel fairly confident to say that. But the people who are orchestrating that, I don't think they really understand that there's some errors with that because they're not complete. And that's what bothers me when I see people who are stuck or insist what they know is completely everything, but they're not counting on what they don't know. Let's face it, the Hubble Space Telescope was put into orbit and it zoomed in on black areas where there were no stars. Obviously it's dark. And for a month it kept on zooming as far as it could zoom. And do you know what it found? Thousands of more planets. So we can understand that there are billions, what we're predicting now, there's more planets in our expanse than grains of sand on all the beaches on the planet Earth. That's a factual statement we feel that would make sense, which means there's more planets than per one per person. And imagine anyone who wants to subjugate or dominate or use a series of grand orders, and they're not allowing for what it is that goes with us to the next. Well, there are some statements I want to say that kind of hit me. And when I see DJT or JB, they've all been part of what most people won't speak of in our agencies is how many people will die, aka cycle, when someone is in the agencies. It's already happened with both of them. And that's my advantage. I could stand clear of being able to say I'm part of that because I haven't been entrenched in that yet. But how do you avoid that and how do you not avoid that? There are so many logical things that need to be discussed. Like through the design, those, I believe, who are following in such a way to allow suffering and dominating and subjugation, have they really considered that having heart is part of what must be? Because when I read the Declaration, there's no question about it. It doesn't say the word love, it doesn't say the word heart, but I got news for you. It is directly relative to it. And what I see is those who might have followed a series of older grand orders from the 1400s and relative to other agencies and things like this. I don't want to mention other things, but um, we could see that the Declaration has added a new icing and a new series of grand orders. And that's why most all these politicians today, they won't talk about it. And if they do, they'll only give you one or two lines, but they don't speak of what it stands for in a whole. When I heard JB recently quote some of those things, to me it was an insult because he doesn't really want to go to the rest of what it stands for because it wouldn't be appropriate in such a way to have the misinformation of the newer grand orders that are relative to the declaration because it stands for five prescriptive ingredients. And so reorchestrating our government, I want to say it means that we have a relativity of where does it stop when things are being of a grand order of a miscontention, a misdirection. And the Declaration of Independence would have us to make sure. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm going to quote it. So the first sentence: one of the course of human events, it become necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of our earth the separate and equal stations to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions with an S of mankind requires that they, the government, should declare the causes which impel them, the people, to the separation. That's the first paragraph. And then it goes into the next one, of course. We hold these truths to be self evident that all men are created equal, with certain unalienable rights endowed by our Creator. Among these are life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. I'll stop right there. So, what did we hear so far? What we heard so far is we need to use the power and energy of our earth. We don't need gasoline. However, can you imagine someone coming out, which plenty of people have already, with devices that increase efficiencies or show the need that we don't need gasoline, and they've disappeared? Does that mean they were bought off or killed? I don't know. That's not the point. It's irrelevant. But the point is, with technology today, we can secure and reaffirm national security to make sure that within those who are calling the shots at the most highest level are running the show to feel satisfied that they still have the control in which they're used to, making business, making jobs, making things happen, securing what America represents globally. So there's a lot of things that would have to change that these candidates are not speaking of. And that's what I represent today. Charles Richard Zerilli, running for the president of our beautiful United States. And I want to say being a beautiful president because no one has ever labeled it that way before. But I believe that when you understand design and you incorporate everything that's existent of our creators, of God, however you want to say it, some people don't believe in God. That's why I believe I want to cover the base. And my heart goes out to them because one of my friends doesn't believe in God. Very considerate person, beautiful husband, beautiful father. So why is it necessary? But I know one thing: God is in him. There's no question in my mind. I believe in God. I believe God is every living thing that exists in our expanse. That means every planet, the sun, the moon, the earth, every prophet, Jesus Christ, our creators, our makers, the light. Light is an emulation. And Nikolai Tesla, he was very brilliant, and he said in the quantum physics degree, he said, in the end, everything turns to light. What we hear in the scriptures is in the end, that if when you go to the next, light is relative. So we can hear these things are very relative. So the Declaration of Independence is directly a guide to life on this earth, which says turning to the powers of the earth. So my point here was also, if people were following a series of grand orders, using a bunch of national security people to protect them, are they wrong? Are they compromising themselves within their own national security? By the way, my name is Charles Richard Zerilli, running for the president of our beautiful United States, the Declaration of Independence Party, and the website is Time to Join, TimeToJoin.us, timetojoin.us. And for those who don't want to use the computer, I'm going to include the phone number, so 718-865-8720. Once again, 718-865-8720. So I just want to leave that as far as having the answer, because what I see is a series of abilities that those who are running the show, they want to make sure they get it right, because within some of the scriptures I've seen, it also says, if you're the rich and powerful, and if you're forgiven, you'll be the lowly next. Does that mean that you're light, which some of these people might think it's white? And maybe that's why we have so many people thinking that being white is so powerful. I disagree. I'm a technician. When you do frequencies, the color white would be considered a frequency of emulation, not a color. From a human being standpoint, you might want to label it and stereotype it as a white or a color, but that could be a grave mistake, because if the grand orders were incomplete and thinking that color should be white, that would be a mistake when it's really the emulation of a bright light. So everything goes to the light. No one ever said it had to be white, but in a human being, if you were to witness it, you would say, oh my gosh, it looks like a white light. Yeah, I can picture that. But extending ourselves into the most high orders that could be for those who want to be the high of the few, who have the most now and are used to it, there's also a statement that backs up, if you don't do it right, you're going to suffer. Once again, like I said in the very beginning, the Declaration of Independence, as a guide, it includes suffering. And it doesn't just incorporate, when you say life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. When you say the pursuit of happiness, we are suffering always to be happy, because no one's 100% happy all the time. So, really, let's be practical. Who else is talking about these things of real life, orchestrating our businesses? And by the way, implementing the Declaration of Independence would remedy 65 to probably 80% or 87% of all issues that any one of these people think that they're going to promise to you, but they have no design. So what are we doing? Drive everyone nuts, and well, all of a sudden it's going to become a hollow promise, and really you could just say it's a lie at that point. Because if they didn't have a design, then how assured were they to secure the high of the few, to secure the people, to secure the earth? It was only in premonition and maybe in partial grand orders, but the Declaration took us to that next step. That to me is what I see as the most important thing, is being able to secure America, secure our jobs, remove our homeless, remedy it. Not because we make it illegal, like, somebody did in New York City. They were trying to make homeless illegal. That's outrageous. And then in Manaloa, in Hawaii, the funny thing is, I have one of the newspapers from there, and I see that I have to laugh because it's just like ridiculously funny, ridiculous that the mayor took people and shipped homeless to Hawaii. So we're not stopping homeless. We're trying to just get rid of them out of your face, but it's going to put it in their face. So do you want to be responsible for homeless? I don't think you do. Do these people have a remedy in front of you to do that? Implementing, changing the Constitution to set a new series of grand orders relative to a balance of life. I don't see it. We're trying to destroy what it is to be homeless and just erase it, when meanwhile it's never going to stop. It's only increasing. So my name is Charles Richard Zerilli, running for the beautiful president, the beautiful United States, is which I want to and love to, and I see myself representing for us, because I'm talking about design plan. Design which incorporates everything, which incorporates the senior citizens to not be forgotten about. Does anyone think of them? What about the ones that are suffering and have nobody? What about if it's you one day? Won't you want to be considered that you'd be taken care of? And do you know why anyone not taking care of our senior citizens, you're breaking the grand orders? That's right. You know why? Because the last sentence of the Declaration says, and for the support of this Declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. And when I read that, and I'm saying to myself, with the rest of the kinesthetics of what the Declaration stands for and the grand orders it represents as a guide, no question about it. It mentions suffering. It mentions 27 items of people who suffered in many different degrees, including that you should not suffer your immigrants, especially don't put them in cages, in which we've done. So some people are being misguided because the president says something, and then a president leads these people to believe that putting people in cages and harming people and causing an inertia to cause a shooting of people, thinking that's what's being American. That's not true. So what I see is is a Declaration of Independence party joins all parties, in which now that the Republicans and the Democrats will have no reason or no excuse not to join. They can still keep their titles, but in essence, in a subdivisional way, they will be part of the Declaration of Independence party. Why? Because it supports fully the Declaration of Independence. So, how does suffering, how is suffering threatened for those who have all the money and power and who want to suffer things or not pay attention to suffering things, however that may go, or following a series of incorrect grand orders that need to be complete? How does that reference it? Well, what it says is, I might not nail this on an exact quote, but you know what? I have it right here. And I'm going to, I thought I had it right here. I don't. It's in my pocket in my other jacket. So, which is only 10 feet away, but I'm not going to disconnect myself to go get it. So, but what it says is, while, quote, while mankind is more disposed to suffer, evils are sufferable than to abolish, than to right the ways and abolish in which they're accustomed. I kind of messed that one up a little bit, but just very close for the words, very, very close. Go read it. It doesn't change the kinesthetics. What I said is as good as the way a couple words could have been switched around. It's the same thing, which means people following the wrong degree, allowing money to rule you and to rule you to the point where you've become heartless. You have now labeled yourself evil. And that really, to me, is the best description of how we can define what evil is. So if I could label this one session here, and by the way, it's 7:24 p.m., 9/6/2020. If I could label this section of the Declaration of Independence Party um, quad monthly video Zoom, I would have to say it. What is evil? Because the Declaration mentions it, many different scriptures mention it, and that's what it is. It's when you focus on so much money and the love of money that you become heartless, because even though you might make love to your wife or love your children, to pretty much predominantly human species, human in mankind, you become heartless. You've learned to manifest making money off of so many people. You've learned to stereotype what it is and to not pay attention to that of which the grand orders would have you know, extending, astonishing the old, abolishing the old grand orders and actually bringing it to the new science. And anyone who says that it's won by science, I don't think you really have a choice when you start to see the Declaration of Independence and how it was written and how George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, of course, will end war. And from what we understand, they uncounted a series of scrolls. Those scrolls were a model of why they wrote the Declaration of Independence. When you read it, why does it say, in the course of human events, when the Constitution says, we the people, who's we? Why would it not be considered to human or mankind when the Declaration does do that? The Constitution doesn't. The Constitution allows slavery, doesn't allow women to vote or children. It excludes humans. So the Constitution doesn't match very clearly the Declaration of Independence. And I see clearly, whether it's between scriptures and scrolls, and those who might want to do it, from what I understand, in some form of religious fashion, and how they might want to call it. And someone had told me that Christianity believes people should suffer. I believe also Christianity also says, relative to that, those who play God will be cast into hell, wailing and grinding their teeth, which means if you're suffering people and you got your grand orders wrong, is it possible that could be possible? I believe so, because when you're the strongest nation in the globe, I believe national security should be of wise, of a strong heart included. And I believe that's why it also says within some of the things that I've heard, especially being a church person and going to church for 30 years every weekend, only very few times that I ever miss being part of the band. That was fun. And playing all the music for people and having people appreciate being at church with live music. Um, we were the third largest in the archdiocese. So that was very prestigious. Um, but I do believe that there is a suffering that is mentioned through some of what's mentioned. And I don't believe that, like one of the popes had said, if you take things literal of what you hear in some of the books and in some of the Bibles, you shouldn't do that. I believe It also says in several different ways, harden not your heart. And the one common denominator every Bible has, one common denominator that every script, every scroll has, is love. Now, there are scripts, I'm scrolling, there are scrolls that weren't complete until George Washington found to add to the rest of the scrolls. That's why it took 56 men in iron pen, iron ball ink, and have a scribe who wasn't American, by the way. Ben Matlock was not America. And why did he change the word united when you could see Thomas Jefferson when he was scrolling the actual pre documents of the Declaration, and you could see them online? And then Ben Matlock, in the end, made the word united really, really, really small. Why? Because we're not looking to unite people. We're not looking to drive people to be controlled within their own self right, looking out for their divine providence, like the Declaration says. So, reverting back to what I said before, that when the sentence is said in the last sentence, and for the support of this declaration with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Why did it say that? Very simply, because divine providence is when your energy rises out of your body. And several quantum scientists have already shown. And why do we lose 21 grams when we die, aka cycle? So I believe there's a series of grand orders relative to the declaration. It needs to modify for all the people who want to do that. The people who are stuck in the middle, some of the national security people, I think it's important to open our minds and understand really what science is, extending it to the honesty of what the true grand orders would be. And I believe the Declaration of Independence settles that. So I'm going to end it pretty much at this point. I've made my point. We talked about some suffering. We labeled what evil is. We told you about the Declaration of Independence Party, a party that joins all parties. That's what it is designed for, not to let have anyone an excuse to not be part of remedying a pandemic crisis emergencies. America showed no preparedness. 9/11, there was no preparedness. Climate change, there's no preparedness. We're scuffling to make it. I want to add climate change is the most emergency severe threat. It must be handled. And I made a video in 2016, Charles R. Zarilli for president, and you can see it on YouTube. All right, fine. It was ridiculously too long. I made it 2.5 hours. I didn't know any better. I was very passionate. I still am. And that's why I'm continuing now to do this, putting my feelers out to see how people are being welcomed to what I have to say. And so, for the most part, um, I already labeled it as a professional technician. And in New York City, we've not made normal ice in the last 10 to 15 years. Proof of that, we're having global things happen. People in America are kind of lucky because you're not, and news is not sharing it. Um, you're lucky because we have not seen a balance of our weather show you outright. But in New York City, we can. In the tri state area, we've not had normal ice or freezing in any normal way that we had in the last 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. I can say that because I experienced it as a professional technician. Everything has a style. And let's see now how you're going to allow people who may lie, who are going to break promises to you when I won't. My name is Charles Richard Zarilli, running for the beautiful president of the beautiful United States, incorporating some honesty and truth, incorporating the Declaration of Independence guides, and it makes national security be reaffirmed. It protects them. It makes a new honor and a trust, and it remedies everything we need to have. My name is Charles Richard Zarilli, part of the Declaration of Independence Party. And so, how I see it is we need to become unified, not because of an overly money oriented control, a control that is not paying attention to the word evil, because that's what money does when you get too big. But I believe there's ways to orchestrate national security, um, a solidarity to every person, every American citizen, which would then spread globally to remedy climate change, which is, I think, if I could advocate anything, it's more critical than the pandemic. Climate change is the most existential, emergency oriented threat we have must be handled now. And HR 763 is not good enough for me. So, and Mr. JB wants to put $2 trillion into thinking that that's going to handle climate. I disagree. Where's his plan? Where's the details? Who's the money going to go to? How's it going to be used? I'd like to see that. Put me on national television, everyone, and you will see a blueprint and a plan that you will feel remedied, and you'll feel that no other president will have surpassed what we see that could be done, that we are, and that the Declaration of Independence does instill that and protects us for it. My name is Charles Richard Zarelli, running for our beautiful, beautiful, beautiful United States. And I use the word United States because we need to be united. We need to have people, and we need to have a feeling of that, a president doesn't cause us harm in such the way that it does. And we need to make these things up. And I believe it's part of what even some people say, well, they do that, national security, whatever. Let's drop that. There are threats that are automatic and real. These are the things that are oriented to an orchestration in such the way that does accomplish the same thing. Why is that relative? Because I think when we face anything that is relative to the natural occurrences, also allows everyone to want to participate, and it also causes a unity in a unique way, looking out for each other. When we see other things that are just hollowed, and we don't really have any unification to be connected at those points. So I hope you appreciate that we discussed what evil was. We labeled climate change. It is the highest degree of an emergency threat now, and that HR 763 is not enough for Charles Richard Zarelli. And I see ways, literally by design, using the Declaration of Independence openly, remedying what a new America will need. My name is Charles Richard Zarelli, running for the president of our beautiful United States, adding more of a human touch, I believe. And please visit my site, timetojoin.us. That's TIMETOJOIN.us, timetojoin.us. And I'll give it to you again, TIMETOJOIN.us. And my name is Charles Richard Zarelli. And for those who are the senior citizens that we also consider part of our design, they need to be given some good TLC. Um, is the phone number that they could use. So 718-865-8720. Once again, 718-865-8720. My name is Charles Richard Zarelli, running for the president of our beautiful United States. Please hear me out. Please give me a couple of chances. And let's not fall for fake hollow lies and promises and all the rest of this when we've not had discussions of what both gentlemen have already had on their reputation that no one really discusses. Thank you very much for listening. My name is Charles Richard Zarelli. Be safe, be strong, be positive, and see it done already, because I do. Thank you very much. The Declaration of Independence Party and time to join.us. Charles Richard Zarelli at your service. Have a wonderful rest of a Labor Day weekend and be safe. Thank you.